Hi, so today I'll be refuting Gill's claim of fact speech. So Gill's major claim is that the prohibition of marijuana use by the UFC and NSAC is unnecessary. He has three supporting claims. The first supporting claim is that marijuana use for medical purposes is essential for the success of the UFC. His second supporting claim is that marijuana should not be in the same category of performance-enhancing drugs, as well as human growth hormones and steroids. And his third supporting claim is that removing marijuana from the banned substance list would lead to less unjust suspensions and fines. So going back to his first supporting claim, which is marijuana use for medical purposes is essential for the success of the UFC. In his argument, Gill mentions Cain Velasquez, Matt Riddle, and Nate Diaz, who are all users of medical marijuana. It helps them recover in the UFC. However, he fails to mention that there are UFC fighters who don't need medical marijuana that are still successful in fighting in the UFC. I found an article titled Top 20 UFC Fighters of All Time, and I picked the top 5 from the list. Number 5 was Randy Couture, who himself was against illegal substances. He was interviewed about a fellow UFC fighter's use of cocaine, and he understood that it numbed fighters' bodies and was unfair in fighting. And other fighters on the list included number 4, BJ Penn, number 3, Chuck Liddell, number 2, Georges St. Pierre, and number 1, Anderson Silva. And there's no research or anything that I found that they abused marijuana while fighting or used it as medical marijuana. So in conclusion, I'm just stating that medical marijuana is good for some UFC fighters, but not for all. So it's not essential for the success of the UFC. And for this claim, he also uses evidence from fighters, such as Matt Riddle, Cain Velasquez, and Nate Diaz, who have gotten in trouble for smoking marijuana while fighting the UFC, but he gave no actual evidence from doctors or experts or anyone else other than the fighters that proves that marijuana for medical purpose is completely necessary for the fighter's recovery. So although they state it is the only thing that helps them, there really is no actual proof that it actually does. So this weakens my opponent's argument. Now going to the secondary claim, which is the Gill's secondary claim that marijuana should not be in the same categories of performance-enhancing drugs as well as human growth hormones and steroids. Gill uses an article by Ben Greenfield that states, "It is generally accepted that smoking or ingesting marijuana decreases reaction time, disrupts hand-eye coordination, and perception." This piece of information is a huge assumption my opponent uses in his argument. Although Ben Greenfield is an expert in the actual article, he didn't use any actual evidence that marijuana had these negative effects. So it is typically known, but there wasn't really any research that was shown. And then now going to the third supporting claim, which is removing marijuana from the banned substance list would lead to less unjust suspensions and fines. So I researched the banned substance list, and it was found on the ufc.usada.org website, and it shows that marijuana, which falls under Section 8 under cannabinoids, it shows that UFC fighters are aware that this drug is a banned substance. And at the top of the list, it states that all substances stated in the list are prohibited at all times in and out of competition. So UFC fighters are then aware of possible consequences when using banned substances such as marijuana. So it shows that really it's not unjust because they're aware of these consequences. And in addition, he states that it would lead to less unjust suspensions and fines, but I fail to see if it really will because there's still other banned substances other than marijuana. And if marijuana was really removed from the list, there would still be many other banned substances that remained. UFC fighters can still face large fines and suspensions. And for example, I found a UFC fighter who failed a drug test, and he was fined $250,000 and suspended for a year. And he was found using clomiphene, which is in the banned substance list. And Gill used the fighter Nate Diaz, who he believed was unjustly fined $165,000 and suspended for over a year. He got in trouble for using marijuana. So as a result of removing marijuana from the banned substance list, I don't think in fact that it will lead to less unjust suspensions and fines. So yeah. So I believe these points weaken Gill's arguments, and we should find more evidence in certain things and present every aspect that the argument can show. Thank you.
All right, organizationally, I think everything is fine. On the first point, when you're talking about the mixed martial artists who don't use these substances and they manage to be successful, I thought that that was a good strategy. You mentioned the top 5 off of that one list, and there's no evidence that they used any of these banned substances, which suggests that you can succeed in this particular business without using them. So the notion that it's essential seems to be a misnomer. I also appreciated the point that you said on this, that the only testimony, the only evidence that the advocate provided on this point was the opinion of people who had already been fined or punished for this particular kind of thing. Not their doctors, not some independent authority, but the fighters themselves who feel like they have been mistreated. And that's despite the fact that they knew what the rules are, and they ignored those rules despite the fact that it was obviously set up in a particular way to prohibit those kinds of things. The notion that they need that suggests that there isn't any alternative, and I think you would need a little bit more demonstration that there isn't any alternative. And like you said, the only evidence that the advocate provides is the self-testimony of people who are trying to justify their position. So I think that that's a good way to kind of taint the evidence and suggest that they don't really have independent or qualitative information on that point. On your second point, the advocate says marijuana is known to have a particular effect on the body, and your only response is, well, they don't cite any evidence here except the opinion of somebody who says it's well known. I don't think that gets you anything. It's like saying, well, it's known that President of the United States is Donald Trump, but I'm not citing any evidence to show that he's President of the United States. So my argument's not as strong because I didn't show evidence of that. Everybody knows that. I think that that's problematic. There are maybe better arguments to make here, for instance, that suggest, like you had on the other part, if it alleviates pain, and one of the things that happens in mixed martial arts that determines who wins and loses is that people are suffering pain, which I assume happens if you get punched in the face or, kneed in the wherever it is they're allowed to knee them, that kind of thing. If marijuana dulls the pain, that seems like it would have an impact on the. I think that might have been a way to go at that particular argument instead of, just kind of pressing for evidence. The press is reasonable when you push on something like that if there's an argument where there's some doubt. I mean, there's not really a lot of doubt that marijuana has this kind of effect on people. I think that's why people use it, to get that effect. So I think it feels just a little silly to be making that argument. I think there are better things that you could have on that. Gesundheit. And then on the third point, I think one thing that you missed an opportunity to point out and would be a legitimate part of the argument is that this is a value claim, not a claim of fact on that third point. The perception of what is just or unjust is exactly what a value is based on. And the only people who see these punishments as unjust are people who have been punished. And here's what the rules are. They know what the rules are. They're published here. Everybody's told about it. There were previous examples of people who were punished for doing these kinds of things, and these people chose to ignore all of that in the first place. So where is the injustice? What was unfair to these particular people? I think that's the way you want to couch that. And then also point out, but it doesn't demonstrate that it's essential to the sport and that MMA or UFC would be more effective if we got rid of these rules. There's no demonstration of that. So it's an irrelevant point, and it addresses an issue that's not covered under the claims of fact. I think that would have been a good way to go at that also. All right, thank you.